Hey guys, tonight we're deep in the jungle. Thick canopy overhead, cicadas humming like 1,000 tiny lullabies. And somewhere in the humid air, a cacao pod is splitting open. You're barefoot, toes curling in the damp earth as you reach for a glossy bean nestled inside a cracked pod. It's sticky, slightly bitter, and smells like something ancient whispered secrets into the soil centuries ago. You probably won't survive this journey if you expect modern comforts or filtered water. But hey, that's the price of stepping back into a world where chocolate was never sweet, always sacred, and occasionally used to buy a hammock or two. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with your location and local time, because even if you're halfway across the world, we're all drifting off together tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Mayans didn't just drink chocolate, they lived it, in the heart of Mesoamerica, where jaguars prowled the shadows and crocodiles lurked beneath temple steps. Cacao trees thrived in the undergrowth. They were delicate things, these trees, needing shade and care, much like the people who tended them. You can imagine a farmer moving quietly through the forest, machete slung over one shoulder, eyes scanning for ripe pods hanging like alien fruit from tree trunks. The pods ranged in color from bright yellow to deep red, some almost bruised looking, others glowing like embers in the dappled light. This wasn't the chocolate you'd find wrapped in foil and stuffed into holiday stockings. This was raw, unfiltered, and utterly foreign to modern palates. The beans inside had to be fermented, roasted, ground, and finally whipped into a frothy brew that packed a punch far beyond caffeine. It was bitter, spiced with chili, and served without sugar. Some say it tasted like mud stirred with fire. Others insist it was divine. Either way, it was the fuel of kings, warriors, and priests. As you walk barefoot through the undergrowth, you step on a fallen branch, and the sound echoes through the trees. Somewhere nearby, a monkey shrieks, a reminder that this isn't a theme park. It's a living, breathing ecosystem where humans are merely guests. The Mayans knew this well. They built their cities around nature, not against it. Their temples rose above the canopy, but their lives were intertwined with the rhythms of the jungle. Cacao groves weren't just farms. They were sacred spaces, places of ritual and reverence. Historians still argue whether cacao was first cultivated by the Olmecs or the Maya. But one thing is certain: by the time the classic Maya period rolled around, roughly 250, 900 CE, chocolate was already deeply embedded in culture, economy, and spirituality. You'll see how that evolved in the next section. But for now, picture yourself holding a handful of fresh cacao beans. They're slick with pulp, warm from the sun, and already whispering promises of power, pleasure, and perhaps a little poison if you're not careful. Because yes, cacao could kill, not the drink itself, but the plant, the leaves, toxic to dogs, the seeds, a mild stimulant for humans, but potentially dangerous in high doses. And then there was the economic side. Beans so valuable they doubled as currency. Imagine walking into a market, clutching a pouch of beans instead of coins, trying to haggle for a woven tunic or a plate of steaming tamales. So yeah, this isn't your average bedtime story, but it's soothing in its own way, like listening to rain fall on a thatched roof, while someone stirs a pot of history over an open flame. You hold the cacao beans in your palm, feeling their weight, small, dense, and oddly powerful for something that once hung from a tree like forgotten fruit. The air is thick with the scent of fermentation as you step into a shaded clearing where workers are already at it, cracking open more pods, scooping out the sticky pulp, and stacking the beans into shallow wooden trays. This is the first step in the long journey from jungle to cup: fermentation. The process is simple but crucial. Without this step, the beans would never develop their signature depth of flavor. They'd be bitter, raw, almost useless. So here they sit, piled high, covered in banana leaves, left to roast slowly in their own juices. You can see them changing, darkening, softening, releasing a tangy aroma that mixes with the damp earth beneath your feet. It's not quite chocolate yet, but it's on its way. Historians still argue whether the Maya developed this fermentation method themselves or inherited it from an older culture, like the Olmecs. Some say the Olmecs were brewing something similar centuries earlier, though the evidence is spotty. Either way, by the time the classic Maya period rolled around, fermentation was standard practice. A few days pass under the humid sky before the beans are ready to move on to roasting. Now picture yourself kneeling beside a fire pit, watching as workers spread the fermented beans across flat stones heated by glowing coals. The scent changes again, smokier now, richer, almost nutty. Roasting brings out more of the beans' complexity, deepens the color, and makes them easier to crack open later. You lean in, letting the warmth soak into your skin, listening to the occasional pop and crackle as moisture escapes. This isn't just preparation, it's transformation. Every stage reshapes the bean, turning it from something wild and unpredictable into something refined, ritualistic, and deeply meaningful. And the Maya understood this well. To them, cacao wasn't just food. It was a gift from the gods, a symbol of life and death, power and sacrifice. Once roasted, the beans cool in woven baskets, waiting for the next step, grinding. But before that, there's one last trick up the Maya's sleeve, a quirky little detail that might surprise modern chocolate lovers. Before grinding, some communities added a splash of maize flour to the mix. Why? Because they believed it enhanced the drink's texture and made it more filling. Others went even further, mixing in crushed flowers, vanilla pods, or even the ground shells of tiny river snails. Not exactly your average hot cocoa, but then again, nothing about this process has been ordinary so far. So here you are, holding a handful of roasted beans, fingers dusted with fine powder. The work ahead is slow and deliberate, requiring patience, skill, and maybe a bit of spiritual guidance. After all, this isn't just making chocolate, it's honoring tradition, feeding the soul, and preparing something sacred. You're kneeling on the smooth stone floor of a dimly lit hut, the scent of roasted cacao beans still clinging to your skin. Before you lies a flat, grinding slab, wide, heavy, and worn smooth by generations of hands just like yours. A wooden pestle rests beside it, its edges darkened with residue from countless batches. This is where the real work begins. The beans are cool now, their outer shells brittle and ready to crack. You scoop up a handful and press them between your palms, feeling the satisfying crunch as husks split open. Bits of shell flake away, leaving behind the heart of the bean, the nibs. They're rich, dense, and full of potential. You toss them onto the grinding slab and pick up the pestle, pressing down firmly. The first few strokes are rough, uneven, but soon the nibs begin to break apart, releasing an earthy aroma that mingles with the fire's smoke. This isn't fast work, it's rhythmic, almost meditative. Your arms move in slow circles, the pestle gliding over the stone as the beans transform into a thick paste. The sound is soothing, a low, steady scrape, punctuated by the occasional hiss of embers from the hearth nearby. You can feel the resistance at first, but gradually the texture softens, becoming smoother, richer, almost oily. Crushing cacao this way takes time. Some say it's best done barefoot, using the soles of your feet to grind the paste more evenly. Others prefer the pestle, finding comfort in the physical rhythm. Either way, the goal is the same: to coax out every last bit of flavor before moving on to the final step, whipping it into foam. Historians still argue whether the Maya originally used foot grinding as a practical technique, or if it had symbolic meaning. Some believe it was a way for farmers to connect physically with the crop, honoring the labor that went into each batch. Others think it was simply easier. Using body weight made the process less tiring. Either way, it worked, and once the paste was ready, the next stage began. You set the pestle aside and reach for a small bowl of warm water, just a splash, enough to loosen the thick mass without diluting it. You stir with your fingers, working the liquid in until the paste becomes pliable again. Now comes the fun part. shaping it into small cakes or pellets, something easy to store and transport. Using both hands, you roll the mixture into neat little discs, setting them carefully on a woven mat to dry. These will be stored in clay jars, kept safe from moisture and pests until they're needed. When the time comes to brew a cup, all you'll need to do is shave off a piece, dissolve it in warm water, and whisk it into frothy perfection. But here's a quirky detail. Some Mayan communities added a pinch of ground maize or even crushed flower petals to the mix before drying. Why? Because they believed it enhanced the drink's texture and gave it a more complex flavor. Others swear by a secret ingredient, ground annatto seeds, which tinted the drink a deep red hue, reminiscent of blood and symbolizing life itself. So you sit there, hands coated in chocolate paste, watching the sun dip lower through the thatched roof above. Outside, the jungle hums with evening life, distant howler monkeys, rustling leaves, the occasional flutter of bat wings. The air is cooling, and soon it'll be time to brew your first cup, but not yet. First, you need the right tool, the one thing that turns this thick paste into something truly special, and that tool is waiting nearby. Carved from wood, shaped like a paddle, and worn smooth from years of use. A simple object, but essential. Without it, no matter how carefully you've roasted or ground the beans, your drink will lack the magic touch, the foam that makes Mayan chocolate what it is. You hold the wooden whisk in your hand, long, slender, carved with care. It's smooth against your palm, worn by generations of hands before yours. This is no ordinary kitchen tool. It's a ritual object, a bridge between preparation and indulgence. With this, you'll transform thick cacao paste into something ethereal, something that dances on the tongue and lingers in memory. The bowl sits before you, shallow and wide, filled with warm water, and a sliver of dissolved chocolate. You dip the whisk in, positioning it just below the surface, then begin the motion, up and down, steady but fluid, like rain tapping gently on a thatched roof. At first, the liquid remains still, dark, almost unyielding, but slowly, tiny bubbles rise to the surface, gathering momentum. The rhythm takes over. Your wrist moves with practiced ease, coaxing foam from nothing, watching as it builds, a rich, velvety head that shimmers in the firelight. This isn't just mixing, it's performance. The Maya knew that foam wasn't just texture, it was prestige. A well-whisked cup was a mark of skill, a sign of refinement. And so they perfected the technique, passing it down through families, ensuring that every sip carried not just flavor, but history. As you work, the scent fills the air, deep, earthy, tinged with spice. Because yes, there's more than just cacao in here. Chili peppers, ground fine and folded into the mix, lend a subtle heat that creeps up the back of your throat. Some might call it strange, even daring, but to the Maya, it was essential. They didn't want sweetness, they wanted balance, complexity, depth. Historians still argue whether chili was added for flavor alone, or if it had medicinal purposes. Some believe it helped preserve the drink longer, while others insist it was simply tradition. Either way, it worked. And now, as you lift the whisk and watch the foam settle, you understand why this brew was never just a beverage, it was an experience. You set the whisk aside and reach for another ingredient. Honey, just a drizzle, enough to take the edge off the bitterness without overpowering the other flavors. Some Mayan communities used vanilla pods instead, crushing them into the mix for a floral undertone. Others swore by annatto seeds, which dyed the drink a deep red hue, symbolizing blood and life itself. But tonight, it's just you, the cacao, and a touch of golden sweetness. You stir once more, then lift the bowl to your lips. The warmth spreads through your fingers, grounding you in the moment. Outside, the jungle hums softly. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of a nocturnal bird, the occasional flicker of fireflies beyond the open doorway. Inside, all is stillness and anticipation. This is the part where modern palates might balk. No milk, no sugar, no whipped cream crowning the top, just bitter, spicy, rich chocolate, unapologetically bold. But there's something strangely soothing about it too, like being wrapped in a blanket woven from time itself. You take the first sip. It hits differently than you expected. Not sweet, but satisfying. The foam clings to your upper lip, warm and velvety. The heat of the chili lingers at the back of your tongue, not overwhelming, just enough to remind you that this is alive, that this is real. And suddenly you get it. Why kings drank this before battle, why priests sipped it during ceremonies, why lovers shared cups beneath moonlit canopies. It wasn't just sustenance, it was ritual, power, connection. So you sit there, cradling the bowl in both hands, letting the warmth seep into your bones. The fire crackles softly beside you, casting long shadows across the walls. Somewhere outside, a monkey calls into the night, its voice echoing through the trees like a distant lullaby. The foam settles, the flavors mellow, and the world feels slower, gentler. Time to move on, but not yet. For now, just breathe. Let the chocolate do its work. Let the night wrap around you like a familiar story, one you've heard before but never tire of hearing again. The temple looms above you, its stone steps worn smooth by centuries of bare feet climbing toward the gods. The air is thick with incense, resin and copal burning in clay braziers, curling into the night sky like whispered prayers. You're not here for battle or trade. Tonight you've been invited to witness something sacred, something only a few are ever privileged to see. Inside the temple's inner chamber, priests move with quiet reverence, their robes embroidered with symbols of the cosmos. A low table rests at the center, carved from limestone and adorned with glyphs that tell stories older than memory. Upon it sit polished ceramic cups, deep red from annatto shimmering faintly in the firelight. These aren't just drinking vessels, they're relics of devotion, each one carefully crafted, each one holding more than just liquid. They hold meaning, power. You kneel on the cool stone floor beside a group of nobles and spiritual leaders, your presence tolerated but not unnoticed. This isn't a common gathering, this is a ceremony, one where cacao flows as freely as thought. A priest steps forward, his hands steady as he lifts a small clay pot filled with warm chocolate brew. He dips a wooden whisk into the mixture and begins the familiar motion up and down. Rhythmic, hypnotic, foam rises, swirling like mist over a jungle river. The scent fills the chamber, earthy, spicy, rich. It's not the kind of aroma that demands attention, but rather one that wraps around you, settling deep in your bones. One by one, the cups are filled, pass silently among those gathered. You accept yours with both hands, feeling the warmth seep into your skin. No one speaks. There is no need. Words would only break the spell. Historians still argue whether these temple rituals were reserved solely for the elite, or if commoners occasionally partook in smaller ceremonies. Some believe cacao was strictly for kings and priests, while others suggest that farmers and artisans might have used it during rites of passage or seasonal festivals. Either way, tonight, you're among the chosen few, sipping history straight from the source. A flicker of movement catches your eye. A carving etched into the temple wall behind the altar. It shows a godlike figure, offering a cup to a kneeling mortal, their hands outstretched in gratitude. The glyph beside them reads Kahul, Ajah, Divine Lord. Cacao wasn't just food, it was divine currency, a bridge between realms. Some say the gods themselves drank it before shaping the world. Others insist that consuming it brought humans closer to the celestial plane, allowing them to hear whispers from beyond. You take another sip, letting the flavors settle on your tongue. The bitterness lingers, grounding you in reality, while the chilly heat stirs something deeper, an awareness, an alertness sharpened by ancient wisdom. This isn't a drink meant for distraction. It's one meant for reflection, for connection. Across from you, an elder priest closes his eyes, tilting his head back, as if listening to something beyond the veil of this world. Maybe he is. Maybe the cacao truly does open doors. Or maybe it's just the effect of sitting in near silence, surrounded by flickering flames, breathing in the same air as ancestors who once stood here, doing exactly what you're doing now. Somewhere outside, a conch shell horn echoes through the valley, a low, mournful sound that ripples across the jungle like a wave. The ceremony continues. Undisturbed, cups are refilled, whisks dip and swirl, foam rises again, disappearing into eager mouths. And you stay seated, wrapped in the hush of the moment, letting the chocolate do its work, letting time slow, letting the world fall away. You're walking through a bustling marketplace, the air thick with the scent of roasted maize, dried chilies, and the faint, lingering bitterness of cacao. Traders call out from their stalls, voices rising above the chatter of buyers haggling over woven textiles, obsidian blades, and baskets of ripe fruit. But here, in this corner of the square, something more valuable than gold changes hands. Beans, small, dark, and powerful enough to buy anything from a pair of sandals to a night's stay at a traveler's lodge. Cacao wasn't just food in the Maya world. It was currency, not the kind you carry around in sacks like grain, but something carefully counted, traded, and stored like treasure. You see a woman handing over a handful of beans in exchange for a bundle of cotton cloth, her fingers moving swiftly as she counts each one. Nearby, a man negotiates the price of a turkey, holding up 5 beans before settling on 4. It's not exactly monopoly money, but it works all the same. Historians still argue whether cacao was used purely as symbolic wealth, or if it functioned like modern coinage. Some believe that because the beans could rot if exposed to moisture, they weren't ideal for large transactions. Others suggest that only dried, high-quality beans were accepted, much like how we might only accept crisp, untorn bills today. Either way, cacao had value, and not just in the kitchen. You watch as a nobleman steps into a shaded pavilion, where a vendor stirs a pot of warm chocolate brew. He reaches into his pouch and drops a few beans onto the counter without a word. The vendor nods, ladles a cup of frothy cacao, and hands it over like any barista serving a regular. No conversation needed, just a simple exchange, liquid luxury for portable wealth. It's strange, really, when you think about it. Today, we trade hours of work for paper or digital numbers that represent our labor. Back then, a few beans in your pocket meant you could afford dinner, entertainment, maybe even a little indulgence. And let's be honest, drinking chocolate in ancient Mesoamerica probably felt a lot like sipping an expensive latte in a modern cafe. It wasn't just fuel, it was status. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that counterfeit cacao beans existed. Yes, fake money made from clay or painted stones passed off as real beans. People tried to cheat the system even back then. Imagine getting caught trying to buy a hammock with a rock disguised as chocolate. You'd be lucky if they just took your fake beans and sent you on your way. Beyond the marketplace, cacao's role as currency extended into social hierarchy. Owning large quantities of beans meant power. Nobles stored them in sealed jars, protected from pests and humidity, ensuring their wealth remained intact. Kings gifted cacao to allies, reinforcing political bonds with something both delicious and valuable. Even marriage negotiations sometimes involved bean exchanges, like dowries made of chocolate instead of gold. And then there was the darker side of cacao as currency: taxation. Farmers growing cacao trees weren't just tending crops. They were paying tribute. They harvested the pods, fermented and roasted the beans, then handed them over to local rulers who redistributed them among nobility, temples, and traders. It was a cycle of control, with cacao flowing from jungle groves to palace vaults like liquid power. You step away from the market stall, clutching your own small pouch of beans, enough for a drink later, maybe a snack, if you find a good deal. As you walk, you pass a group of children playing near a water fountain, tossing beans into the air like dice. One catches a falling bean in his palm, grinning proudly before stuffing it into his mouth. You laugh quietly to yourself. In another time and another place, those kids would have been scolded for wasting money. Here, they're just snacking on history. The sun is beginning to dip lower now, casting long shadows across the stone-paved streets. Soon the market will quiet down, the traders will pack up, and the city will settle into its evening rhythm. But for now, you keep walking, feeling the weight of your pouch against your hip, knowing that every bean inside holds more than flavor. It holds meaning. You settle onto a woven mat beneath the high ceiling of the royal hall, the air thick with the scent of burning copal and warm cacao. Around you, nobles recline in quiet clusters, their embroidered tunics catching the flickering torchlight like ripples on a still pond. This isn't just a gathering. It's a moment carved into history, a silent exchange of power, tradition, and indulgence. At the center of it all sits the ruler himself, draped in jaguar pelts and adorned with jade ornaments that catch the fire's glow. He holds a cup of frothy chocolate in both hands, fingers steady despite the weight of command. Tonight is not for battle or decree. Tonight is for ceremony, for reflection, for sipping something older than empire itself. The servant steps forward, offering you a small clay vessel filled to the brim with warm cacao brew. You accept it without a word, feeling the heat seep through the ceramic. No sugar here, just bitterness laced with spice, the kind of drink that wakes the soul more than the body. You watch as others around you do the same, each noble lifting their cups in unspoken unity before taking the first sip. This is how the elite drank chocolate, not rushed, not diluted, but slow, deliberate, and deeply symbolic. It wasn't just refreshment, it was a marker of status, a sign of access to resources few could claim. Only the highest-ranking members of society were granted such luxuries, and even then, only in moments of significance. Births, marriages, coronations, all marked by the shared warmth of a sacred beverage. Historians still argue whether these courtly drinking sessions were purely ceremonial or if they served as subtle political negotiations. Some believe that important decisions were made over cups of cacao, masked by casual conversation, but carrying the weight of fate. Others insist it was simply a way for rulers to display wealth, reinforcing their divine right to govern by surrounding themselves with symbols of abundance. Either way, tonight, you're part of it. Across from you, the young prince lifts his cup again, tilting it back until the last drops vanish down his throat. His lips are stained red from annatto, his eyes half-lidded with contentment. He catches your gaze and offers a small nod, a gesture not of friendship, but of acknowledgement. You belong here, at least for now. The room hums with low murmurs, the occasional clink of ceramic against stone, the soft rustle of fabric as attendants move between guests, refilling cups with practiced grace. Outside, the jungle whispers beyond the palace walls, its nocturnal creatures indifferent to the affairs of men. Inside, time slows. The world narrows to this moment, this cup, this quiet ritual passed down through generations. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that certain Maya rulers commissioned custom-made chocolate cups, inscribed with glyphs detailing their reign and lineage. These weren't just vessels, they were declarations of identity, statements of permanence. Even in death, nobles were sometimes buried with their favorite cups, ensuring that wherever they went next, they'd still have something to sip on. You set your own cup aside, letting the last of the foam settle. Your eyelids feel heavier now, the warmth in your chest spreading outward like embers carried on a breeze. Across the hall, the ruler leans back against a pile of cushions, his expression unreadable. He doesn't speak, but he doesn't need to. His presence alone is enough. Tonight, words aren't necessary. Chocolate speaks for them all. The night air is thick with incense, the scent of burning copal curling through the temple like a whispered invocation. You stand barefoot on the cool stone floor, watching as priests move in slow, deliberate circles around the central altar. The flickering glow of torches casts long shadows across the walls, where carved figures loom like silent witnesses to something ancient and unspoken. This isn't just a gathering, it's a ritual, one that binds the living to the divine, the past to the present, and you, however briefly, to something far greater than yourself. Before you, a priest lifts a polished ceramic cup filled with warm cacao brew. The liquid shimmers faintly in the firelight, its surface crowned with a swirl of foam that rises and falls with the rhythm of his breath. He doesn't drink it yet. Instead, he holds it aloft, turning slowly, so that each cardinal direction receives its offering. North, east, south, west, the corners of the world acknowledged in silence, in reverence. This is no ordinary cup of chocolate. It's part of a ceremony older than memory, a tradition woven into the fabric of Maya spiritual life. Cacao was never just food. It was sacred, a bridge between realms, a gift from the gods meant to be shared only at moments of deep significance. And tonight, you are here to witness it firsthand. A second priest steps forward, carrying a small bowl filled with crushed cacao beans mixed with ground maize and annatto seeds. With careful hands, he sprinkles a portion of the mixture onto the altar, letting it fall like red gold dust over the stone. A sacrifice, not of blood or life, but of substance, of sustenance. Because in this world, what you give up is what proves your devotion. Historians still argue whether these rituals were strictly religious or if they served dual purposes: political, social, even medicinal. Some believe that cacao played a role in fertility rites, while others insist it was consumed before divination ceremonies to heighten awareness and clarity. Either way, tonight, it feels like something more than just a drink. It feels like communion. Across from you, an elder priest chants softly, his voice low and rhythmic, blending with the crackle of flames and the distant hum of jungle life beyond the temple walls. His words are unfamiliar, but their meaning is clear. This is a moment of connection, a tether between the mortal and the divine. You feel it in your bones, in the hush that settles over the gathered crowd, in the way the very air seems to hold its breath. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that during certain ceremonies participants would drink cacao mixed with tobacco juice or hallucinogenic plants. Whether for spiritual insight, endurance, or simply tradition, these combinations weren't for the faint of heart. Imagine sipping a cup of bitter chocolate, only to realize minutes later that reality has shifted ever so slightly. Colors deeper, sounds sharper, time slower. Not exactly your average bedtime drink, but then again, nothing about this journey has been ordinary. The first sip comes without warning. The young acolyte kneels beside you, offering a fresh cup of frothy cacao. You take it with both hands, feeling the warmth seep into your skin, grounding you in the moment. There's no rush, no pressure, just the quiet understanding that whatever happens next, you are part of it now. You lift the cup to your lips, letting the thick liquid coat your tongue. Bitterness spreads first, sharp and undeniable, followed by the slow burn of chili, the subtle sweetness of honey, the earthy depth of roasted beans. It's unlike anything you've tasted before, not comforting in the traditional sense, but strangely soothing all the same, like being wrapped in a blanket, woven from time itself. Around you others drink too, their movements measured, reverent. No one speaks, no one needs to. The ritual unfolds in silence, in shared experience, in the quiet certainty that you are witnessing something eternal. Outside, the wind stirs the trees, sending leaves rustling like distant whispers. Inside, the fire burns steady, casting long shadows that dance along the temple walls. And in this moment, you understand why cacao was never just a luxury, why it was never just indulgence. Because sometimes, the most powerful things aren't sweet, they're complex, they're layered, they demand your attention, your presence, your soul, and tonight, you gave it willingly. You walk barefoot through the jungle, the damp earth cool beneath your soles, the scent of morning mist mingling with the rich aroma of cacao trees stretching ahead in neat rows. The groves are quiet now, no rustling leaves disturbed by passing animals. No distant calls of howler monkeys echoing through the canopy, just the soft hush of wind weaving between trunks, the occasional drip of dew from broad green leaves, and the steady rhythm of your own breath as you step into the world of those who tended these sacred plants, long before modern farms took over the land. The Maya didn't just grow cacao, they nurtured it like a child, coaxing life from the soil with patience and precision. You kneel beside one of the trees, running your fingers along the rough bark, noting the way its branches twist upward toward the filtered sunlight. These aren't wild specimens left to chance. They're carefully cultivated, pruned for optimal growth. sheltered beneath the shade of taller trees that protect them from harsh sun and sudden storms. Historians still argue whether cacao was grown exclusively in managed groves, or if farmers also harvested from semi-wild stands deep in the forest. Some believe that certain communities maintained small personal plots near their homes, while others suggest large-scale production existed in specialized regions like the highlands of Chiapas or the Petén Basin. Either way, the work was never easy. Cacao trees demanded attention, consistent moisture, careful pest control, and the ever-present threat of disease wiping out an entire harvest overnight. You reach for a low-hanging pod, its surface smooth and waxy under your fingertips. It's not quite ripe yet, its color still leaning more green than red. But soon it will split open on its own, releasing its treasure of sticky beans inside. For now, you leave it be, moving instead to inspect the ground around the tree's base. Here, among the tangled roots, lie signs of daily care, hand-dug trenches to regulate water flow, crushed shells scattered to deter insects, even the faint imprint of footprints pressed into the soil from last night's patrol. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that Mayan farmers believed cacao trees thrived best when sung to, not metaphorically, literally. They would hum or chant softly while tending their groves, convinced that sound vibrations encouraged stronger growth. Whether this was superstition or an early form of agricultural therapy remains unknown. But tonight, as you kneel beneath the trees, you find yourself tempted to try it anyway. So you do. Quietly, barely above a whisper, you hum a simple tune, one that carries no words, only warmth. And though the trees don't respond, the act itself feels strangely soothing, like you've stepped into the rhythm of something older than time, something that doesn't demand urgency, but instead invites presence. As dawn breaks fully, the groves come alive. Birds flit between branches, their calls sharp against the rising heat. Insects buzz lazily through the air, their wings catching the golden light filtering down from above. Somewhere nearby, a farmer begins his morning rounds, machete slung casually over one shoulder, eyes scanning for signs of ripening pods. He nods at you as he passes, not out of curiosity, but recognition. You belong here now, at least for a little while. You follow him deeper into the grove, watching as he reaches for a freshly split pod, slicing it cleanly from the branch with practiced ease. He splits it open with a quick twist of his wrist, revealing the glistening white pulp nestled within. With careful fingers, he scoops the beans into a woven basket slung across his back, moving on without hesitation. This is routine. This is life. And you keep walking, stepping softly between the rows, letting the weight of the moment settle over you, like a slow-moving tide. The world beyond the groves may be filled with noise, with urgency, with demands pulling you in 1,000 directions. But here, in this quiet space beneath the trees, there is only one thing that matters: the gentle rhythm of growth. The river glimmers beneath the midday sun, its surface rippling with the quiet rhythm of paddles dipping into water. You sit low in a wooden canoe, hands resting on your knees as the current carries you forward, deeper into the heart of the jungle. On either side, towering trees lean inward, their branches weaving a canopy so thick that only scattered shafts of light break through. The air is heavy with humidity, and the scent of damp earth mingled with something else, something rich, something familiar. Cacao. It's not just grown here, it's moving. Travelers, traders, messengers, they all carry it, in woven baskets, tucked beneath their cloaks, in clay jars sealed against moisture, in small pouches tied to their belts, like talismans of fortune. This isn't just a commodity, it's currency, ritual, sustenance, and status, wrapped into one. And tonight, you're riding along its path, tracing the slow, winding journey of chocolate as it spreads beyond the groves where it was born. Historians still argue whether cacao trade routes were strictly local, or if they stretched across vast distances, linking distant civilizations in an unspoken network of shared indulgence. Some believe that highland communities traded beans for salt and textiles, while others insist that cacao reached as far north as Teotihuacan and even into the lands of the Aztecs centuries later. Either way, its movement shaped economies, strengthened alliances, and carried its legacy far beyond the jungles where it first took root. You watch as the man ahead of you, a trader dressed in simple cotton, his skin bronzed by years of travel, dips a hand into his satchel and pulls out a small bundle wrapped in maize leaves. He unwraps it carefully, revealing a few dried cacao beans nestled inside. He offers one to you without a word, and you accept it, rolling it between your fingers before slipping it into your mouth. It's bitter, dense, almost nutty in texture, not sweet, like modern chocolate, but powerful in its own right, a reminder that this bean has traveled far to reach you, changing hands, crossing rivers, enduring long journeys under the sun. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that traders sometimes hollowed out gourds and filled them with cacao beans, sealing them tightly to protect against moisture during long trips. These weren't just containers. They were portable vaults, each one holding enough wealth to buy food, shelter, or even passage through enemy territory. Imagine walking into a foreign market, reaching into your gourd, and offering a handful of beans instead of coins, watching as the seller weighs them carefully, then nods in approval. No need for written contracts, no need for metal coins, just trust in the value of what you carry. The river narrows ahead, forcing your guide to steer toward the bank. You step onto soft ground, feeling the dampness soak into your feet as you follow him inland. Here, the jungle is denser, the sounds sharper, the call of distant birds, the rustle of unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth. Somewhere ahead lies a village, a waypoint on the broader road of Cacao's journey. Tonight you'll rest there, trading stories, sharing meals, and maybe even partaking in another cup of frothy brew before continuing onward. Because this isn't just about movement, it's about connection. Every time cacao changes hands, it brings people together, farmers and merchants, nobles and commoners, strangers bound by a shared understanding of what this bean represents. It's more than just food, more than just drink. It's history, flowing like the river beneath your feet. You sit cross-legged on a woven mat, the scent of warm cacao curling through the air like an old friend. Before you, a woman stirs a pot over a low fire, her hands moving with practiced ease as she lifts a wooden whisk and begins the familiar motion. Up and down, steady, rhythmic. The thick liquid inside the bowl shimmers faintly in the firelight, foam rising slowly to the surface. This is more than just preparation, it's preservation, a recipe passed down through generations, unchanged despite the centuries that separate you from those who first crafted it. Tonight, you're not drinking history, you're recreating it. Every sip you take is a direct link to the past, a taste of something older than empires, older than written records. And yet, here it is, still alive in your hands, still whispering its secrets into the night. The woman beside you dips a small clay cup into the pot and offers it to you without a word. You accept it with both hands, feeling the warmth seep into your skin. No sugar, no milk, just bitter, spiced chocolate, rich and complex. You lift it to your lips and take a slow sip, letting the flavors unfold on your tongue. At first, there's only the deep earthiness of roasted beans, followed by the sharp bite of chili, then the subtle sweetness of honey creeping in at the edges. It's unlike anything you've tasted before. Not sweet, not soft, but bold in a way that demands your attention. Historians still argue whether these recipes were strictly regional, or if they varied between families and communities. Some believe that certain noble households guarded their blends like sacred texts, passing them only to trusted heirs. Others insist that commoners had their own variations, adjusting ingredients based on what was available. Either way, tonight, you're sipping something timeless, a drink that hasn't changed since the days when Maya kings raised their cups beneath torchlit temples. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that certain blends included unexpected additions, ground flowers, crushed snail shells, even powdered bone. whether for flavor, texture, or symbolic meaning remains unclear. Imagine reaching for your morning cup of chocolate and realizing it contained a pinch of dried marigold petals or a dash of ground limestone. Not exactly what modern palates expect. But then again, this journey has never been about comfort. It's about immersion, about stepping into a world where chocolate wasn't just a treat. It was a statement, a ritual, a piece of identity. You set your cup aside and watch as the woman reaches for another ingredient. A small pouch filled with dried vanilla pods. She crushes one between her fingers, releasing a floral aroma that mingles with the cacao's bitterness. Vanilla wasn't always used, but when it was, it transformed the drink entirely. A touch of sweetness, not from sugar, but from nature itself. You take another sip, noting how the flavors shift now, smoother, more rounded, as if the chocolate itself has softened. Beyond the firelight, the jungle hums softly, its nocturnal creatures indifferent to the moment unfolding before you. Somewhere in the distance, a frog croaks, its voice echoing through the trees like a lullaby. Inside, time slows. The world narrows to this simple act, drinking, listening, breathing, because this isn't just about chocolate. It's about connection to the past, to the people who once sat in this very place, stirring the same brew, sharing the same silence. Tonight, you are part of that lineage, and the story is far from over. The jungle hums softly around you, but inside the barracks, all is stillness and quiet preparation. You sit among warriors, some young, some weathered by years of battle, each holding a clay cup filled with warm cacao brew. The scent lingers in the air, earthy and sharp, mingling with the faint traces of sweat and leather from their armor. This isn't a celebration or a feast, it's routine, a ritual as old as the city itself. Before dawn breaks fully, these soldiers will rise, strap on their weapons, and take to the roads that wind through the dense undergrowth, watching for signs of movement beyond the borders of their kingdom. Some are scouts, tasked with tracking enemy movements. Others are elite fighters, trained in the art of obsidian-edged makwahuto, strikes and precise, deadly blows. And before any of them step into the unknown, they drink, not for courage, though it helps, but for endurance, for clarity, for strength. You lift your own cup, feeling the warmth seep into your hands, grounding you in this moment. The first sip hits like a whisper, not sweet, not soft, but bold. Bitterness spreads across your tongue, followed by the slow burn of chili, then the subtle sweetness of honey curling at the edges. It's unlike anything you've tasted before, a drink that doesn't soothe so much as awaken. Every nerve feels sharper, every breath steadier. Historians still argue whether cacao was consumed primarily by the warrior class, or if laborers and farmers relied on it just as heavily. Some believe that Maya soldiers drank it before battle to enhance stamina, while others insist that common workers used it during long hours of physical labor to stave off fatigue. Either way, tonight, you understand why it was valued beyond its taste. Has quirky detail. Some records suggest that certain warriors carried small pouches of dried cacao paste with them on long campaigns, mixed with water. It provided an energy boost without requiring bulky rations. Imagine marching for days beneath the unrelenting sun, parched and exhausted, only to break off a piece of hardened chocolate and let it dissolve on your tongue. No sugar, no milk, just pure, raw fuel for survival. Across from you, a soldier lifts his cup one last time before setting it aside. He stands slowly, stretching his arms above his head, muscles taut with readiness. Around him, others follow suit, moving with the practiced ease of men who have done this countless times before. They don't speak. There's no need. The silence between them is thick with understanding. Outside, the first hints of morning light filter through the trees, casting long shadows across the stone-paved courtyard. Birds call out from distant branches, their songs rising with the shifting breeze. Somewhere beyond the walls, the jungle waits, vast, unknowable, teeming with life and danger alike. And yet, despite what lies ahead, there is peace in this moment, in the shared ritual of drinking together before parting ways, in the knowledge that whatever comes next, they faced it with something stronger than fear, something deeper than duty. Because sometimes the most powerful things aren't weapons or armor. Sometimes they're simple pleasures, like a cup of chocolate brewed strong enough to carry you through whatever the day brings. You sit beneath the stars, the jungle stretching endlessly around you, its night sounds weaving a soft symphony of rustling leaves and distant calls. The fire beside you flickers low now, casting long shadows that dance across the stone walls of the temple behind you. In your hands, you hold a cup of warm cacao brew, its surface crowned with foam, its scent rich with mystery, and as you sip, something shifts, not in the world around you, but within it. Because tonight, you're not just drinking chocolate, you're stepping into legend. The myths swirl like smoke, twisting through time, blurring the line between history and belief. Some say cacao was a gift from the gods, a divine offering dropped from the heavens to nourish kings and warriors alike. Others whisper that it was stolen, plucked from the sacred groves of the underworld by a cunning trickster who defied death itself to bring it to humankind. Historians still argue whether Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, was truly credited with bringing cacao to mortals, or if that tale was later borrowed from Aztec mythology. Some believe the Maya had their own version of this story, one where the god Ixchuaj played a role in guiding traders safely through dangerous lands in exchange for offerings of beans. Either way, one thing is clear: cacao was never just food, it was power, magic, mystery. A quirky detail: some records suggest that certain Maya communities believed cacao could act as a bridge between worlds. Shamans used it in rituals meant to summon spirits, using its bitter strength to open doorways between the living and the dead. Imagine sitting in silence, sipping slowly, feeling the warmth settle deep in your chest, and suddenly the air shifts. A presence stirs at the edge of perception. Was it the drink, or something else entirely? Outside, the wind stirs the trees, sending leaves tumbling like whispered secrets. Somewhere beyond the firelight, an owl calls, its voice echoing through the darkness like a question without an answer. Inside, the myth lingers, curling through your thoughts like steam rising from your cup. Because here's the thing about stories: they shape how we see the world. They color our understanding of what came before, what might come next. And when it comes to cacao, the lines between truth and legend blur like foam dissolving into liquid. Was it a blessing, a curse, a gift freely given, or a treasure wrestled from the hands of fate? You take another sip, letting the flavors unfold on your tongue. Bitterness first, then heat, then the slow sweetness creeping in at the edges. Like any good story, it doesn't offer simple answers. It simply invites you to listen, to wonder, and maybe, just maybe, to believe. You step onto the worn stone path, the scent of damp earth and distant cacao groves curling through the air like a whispered memory. The jungle hums softly around you, its nocturnal creatures indifferent to the journey unfolding beneath their watchful presence. But tonight, you're not just walking through history, you're tracing it, following the echoes of chocolate as it spread beyond the Maya heartland, winding its way through rivers, across mountains, and into the hands of civilizations yet to come. The Maya weren't the only ones who revered cacao. As trade routes expanded and cultures intertwined, this sacred bean found new homes in distant lands. You imagine a traveler from Cacao arriving at the bustling markets of Teotihuacan centuries later, his pouch heavy with beans that once grew deep in the jungles of Mesoamerica. He offers them in exchange for obsidian blades, woven textiles, and rare pigments ground from crushed insects. These aren't just transactions, they're moments of cultural fusion, quiet exchanges that shape the course of history without ever making headlines. Historians still argue whether the Aztecs inherited their love for cacao directly from the Maya, or if they developed their own traditions independently. Some believe that as the Maya declined, their knowledge and their beans migrated northward, finding fertile ground among the rising power of Tenochtitlan. Others insist that cacao had already traveled far before the great empires rose, passing through countless hands along networks that stretched from the Yucatan to the Andes. Either way, by the time the Aztecs built their capital on the shores of Lake Texcoco, cacao was no longer a secret. It was currency, ritual, and status all wrapped into one. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that the Aztecs preferred their chocolate cold rather than warm, a departure from the Maya tradition of sipping it hot. Imagine holding a cup of frothy, spiced cacao under the blazing sun of an imperial city, letting the cool liquid slide down your throat instead of warming your chest. It's a small difference, but one that speaks volumes about how each culture shaped the drink to fit its own rhythms, its own needs. Beyond Mesoamerica, cacao's reach extended even further. In the highlands of the Inca Empire, where llamas carried goods across mountain passes and runners sprinted between cities separated by days of travel, traces of cacao have been found in ceremonial vessels far from its native soil. How did it get there? Through traders moving upriver, through diplomatic gifts exchanged between rulers seeking alliances. No one knows for sure, but the fact remains even in lands where cacao trees never grew, people found ways to claim its magic for themselves. You pause at the edge of a ruined plaza, its stones weathered by time, but still whispering stories to those willing to listen. A carved relief stands before you, depicting figures seated in ritual, cups raised in silent tribute. They could be Maya, they could be Aztec, or perhaps they belong to another people entirely. Another chapter in the long, winding tale of chocolate's journey across continents. Because here's the thing about cacao. It was never meant to stay in one place. It was always on the move, slipping through borders, adapting to new tongues, taking root wherever people were willing to embrace its bitter complexity. And as you stand beneath the stars, feeling the weight of history settle over you like a familiar blanket, you realize something simple yet profound. This story isn't set just about the Maya. It is about all of us. The stars stretch endlessly above you, their light soft against the deep velvet of the night sky. The jungle hums with its usual rhythm, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant call of a nocturnal bird, the occasional chirp of unseen insects weaving through the darkness. You sit on a woven mat beneath the open sky, a clay cup cradled in your hands, its warmth seeping into your fingers like an old friend's embrace. This is it. The last sip. You lift the cup slowly, watching as the surface ripples slightly with your movement. The foam has settled now, blending back into the liquid like memories sinking into sleep. You take a slow breath, letting the scent wrap around you. Earthy, spicy, rich, not sweet in the modern sense, but deeply satisfying. Complex, real. Tonight you've walked through groves where cacao trees stood tall beneath the jungle canopy, their roots tangled in soil nourished by centuries of care. You've knelt beside grinding stones worn smooth by generations of hands, pressing roasted beans into thick paste until the scent filled every corner of the hut. You've sat among warriors who drank this brew before dawn patrols, among nobles who sipped it beneath torchlit temples, among traders who carried it across rivers and mountains like portable treasure. You've tasted history, lived it, felt it, settle into your bones. Historians still argue whether the Maya were the first to truly elevate cacao beyond sustenance, or if they inherited pieces of this tradition from even older cultures. Some say the Olmecs brewed something similar long before the classic Maya period, while others believe cacao's journey was shaped by countless hands over thousands of years. Either way, tonight, you understand why this drink became more than just food. It became ritual, currency, identity, a thread that wove through empires, rituals, and daily life alike. A quirky detail. Some records suggest that certain Maya communities believed drinking chocolate before sleep could bring prophetic dreams, whether it was the caffeine, the chili, or simply the power of belief remains unknown. But as you sit here now, feeling the warmth spread through your chest, you wonder if perhaps there was something to it. Because tonight you haven't just been told a story, you've lived one. Outside the wind stirs again, sending leaves tumbling gently across the stone-paved courtyard. Somewhere nearby, a conch shell horn echoes through the valley, its low, mournful sound rippling across the jungle like a wave. Inside, all is stillness, silence, peace, because this isn't just about chocolate. It's about connection to the past, to the people who once held these same cups, to the traditions that endured long after cities fell and rulers changed. Tonight you were part of that lineage, and though the journey must end, the memory lingers like the last traces of foam dissolving into warm liquid. So take another sip, let it settle, let it carry you forward. Close your eyes, let the jungle hum you to sleep.